Hi, my name is Bryan Lennon, and I'm a certified financial planner and regional vice president for Wealth Enhancement. Our guest today is Bryan Kuhn, who is also a certified financial planner and senior vice president based out of Fulton, Maryland, where he spent the last 24 years focusing his practice on working with federal employees, assisting to secure their financial futures. Given recent announcements affecting federal employees, we've been providing clarity to both current and prospective clients around how they should be thinking about and preparing for their own financial futures. To that end, we thought it would be prudent to offer advice at scale to those who need it. Later on, we'll share more information on how to get in touch with us if you have any specific questions or would like a complimentary planning session. With that said, let's get right into it. So, Bryan, first of all, thanks for joining us today. Uh,
Absolutely.
let's start with let's start with the first question. What have you been hearing from your clients on the latest developments?
Sure. So, as we're having this conversation on the 19th of February, we have just got passed on Valentine's Day the removal of a majority of the probationary employees within the federal workforce, which has been jarring, to say the least. A lot of uncertainty out there. That includes apparently employees who, like IRS agents heading into tax season, and people responsible for the security of our nuclear weapons and our scientists on the front lines of researching diseases that are spreading in the country potentially. So a lot of change and a lot of concern. And then a lot of what I'm hearing from people that I'm talking to is just a removal of some of the trust that they thought they had in their careers and in the workforce. So a little bit concerning of a time, but everybody's doing the best they can to take the next step forward and educate themselves on what could happen. And that's what we're here to do today.
For sure. Are there themes or consistencies you're seeing amongst the federal clients that you're currently working with?
Yeah, there's a few different categories of people that seem to come to mind, or the people that we're talking to. So the probationary employees, they are in a window here where they are no longer employed by the federal government. So they have certain time frames to take certain actions that attorneys can explain to them, and I would highly recommend they speak with one, as we'll get into a little bit later. But from a financial planning standpoint, which is our role in all of this, other than to help people assemble their team of other professionals, so we have potentially, it's appearing so, a job change environment. So there's certain actions, of course, that they would take, and we can help them plan around. You have another category of employees who is experienced in the government for a while now, but not really anywhere near the start of their pension, right? So they have, 5 to 10, 15 years, but there wasn't really anything on the horizon where they were planning to transition away from the government anyway. And those folks, the theme there is basically, I hope nothing happens, right? I have this career. I enjoy my career. I enjoy what I've been doing. So we're planning for what if scenarios if something were to change, but there's no decision to be made regarding any sort of like the DRP that we're now passed, or volunteering for any other sort of separation from service. And then you have another category that is either eligible for retirement anyway, or almost eligible for retirement. So those people, they generally, they already knew their date in the near term, 3 years and 1 month from now, or 18 months where they were planning on transitioning away. But in many cases, what I'm hearing is, they don't want to go earlier than that date, right? Because the pension, as important as it is to one's retirement plan, is still not the same value as your salary. So it's more money, and you might enjoy what you're doing. So in many cases, it isn't, I am eager to leave. It's just simply what would be the ramifications of doing so. And we're talking through with them scenarios where, how long do we need to be in the government to qualify for everything that we want to qualify for, namely, pension, health insurance, and so forth. And if something were to happen tomorrow, or as part of any sort of reduction in force here in the upcoming months, what would things look like? So there's different categories of federal employees that we're talking to.
One question I've been getting a lot from clients, and I know you have, is how are federal employees supposed to assess the legality of what's happening right now?
Right. Yeah. It's difficult because there were in the past sort of understood processes for how this sort of thing works. Because there have been reduction in force in the past or early retirement opportunities, but it's a little different this time around. So the clear answer is to speak with an attorney. So that's been recommended, I'm sure, to the federal workforce. Before. I mean, I've seen it many times recommended from colleagues or online in news articles and so forth. So I would endorse that as well. If there was ever a time that it was obvious to speak with, even if just briefly, to make an introduction with a federal employment law attorney that's operating where you are, it would be now. So the additional action for those who are members of a union would be to make sure they're staying in touch with their union representative. Uh, so I would imagine many people that have done that at this point. We've had a few weeks to understand that there's going to be some uncertainty and change, but they are there to explain what's supposed to happen, right? And we hope what's supposed to happen will happen from a process standpoint. So for example, if someone has a circumstance with their employment that is supposed to lead to the MSPB, then we hope that they will have that opportunity to do so, right? There's some comments about their workload and whether they'll be eligible for that and fitting within certain timeframes. So I would just say, to the extent you can get a hold of one, because they are rather they're booking up as we speak, federal employment law attorneys that I'm speaking to. It'd be a good idea to check in with them and just understand, just share your personal circumstances, and they'll take it from there.
Hmm. Aside from what you've been hearing and the developments that we continue to pay attention to, legality or otherwise, what are some personal financial steps that people can be taking right now?
Yeah, that's really the bulk of what we help with. That's our role. So the first thing that comes to mind to me is building a retirement projection, right? We build cash flow models for a living all day long with people who have retired or are about to retire or have lost their job in the private sector, which does happen sometimes. But even in this scenario, if you are still working for the federal government and you want to, and we hope that that job remains as long as you'd like, I don't see any downside, and I see it very difficult to maintain stress levels and think towards the future without that retirement projection built. Right? We want to enter in some numbers. We want to make some assumptions. We want to change around those assumptions for more pessimistic scenarios. Just got finished doing that with a client this morning. Thankfully, things looked pretty good, right? Better than they anticipated, and that's often the case with retirement planning. When there are pensions involved, that certainly is a helpful tool or benefit for retirement, but it doesn't always look as well as we would like it to. But that context, that visual representation of what your future looks like, I think is extremely valuable. So that's what we primarily do, and are what we're offering to do. Other things from basic personal finance standpoint is just maintaining cash, right? We don't know how it's going to go. So to the extent we can maintain liquidity, maintain access to money, just understand how we access all of our money, right? What are the rules? What's the paperwork? What's the time frame? What's the tax consequences? All very important. I saw one yesterday, a scenario of both spouses were considered probationary employees, and both were let go on Friday. So, I mean, just unbelievable scenarios. So certainly for that sort of situation, we are assembling liquidity until there is the next steps. And it's not just liquidity to pay our monthly bills. It could be liquidity for the sake of successfully transitioning to an alternative career or job. There could be some costs associated with that, or legal fees, unfortunately, could be something that there needs to be done if the nature of your claim isn't something that just progresses itself on its own, right? If you're just talking to the attorney to represent you or get their perspective, unfortunately, there's typically a cost for that. So those are two things. A third thing that I've mentioned that I'm finding federal employees are not often ready to assess because this is all happening so fast is the nature of where they live, right? Their home. It could be one of their largest assets. They've been there a while. They might have intended to downsize or move south one day anyway, but now we are potentially downsizing for cash flow reasons or to travel with our agency if there's a relocation, or we're just retiring earlier, all sorts of things. So as thorough as it might seem, it is very important to look into just sort of the nature of what steps would be necessary there if we needed to get that ready to put on the market. And that's happening in the DC, Northern Virginia, Maryland area here. We're seeing it more and more. So those are the three main themes. There's always investment allocation topics that we cover with clients, transitioning into the private sector or transitioning into some form of part-time position, right? For those very near retirement, they might say, well, this scenario that we've run, even if it looks like I would be okay to retire, I wouldn't want to, right? Just because I would like to contribute, I would like to work, I wouldn't mind doing it part-time or teleworking, right? If I have the opportunity to do that. So there are some personal finance-based steps to look into that in terms of just transitioning our career or our skill set or documenting what we're able to do. It's all that I would say falls into the category of personal finance. And then also working with a particular occupation called a career transition specialist or just a career coach. There's many people out there that focus on the federal workforce who I feel are very helpful roles for people to reach out to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So for context, I'm based out of Northern Virginia. Bryan's in Maryland. Clearly, we have a focus in our area. We're spending a lot of time and resources both at the local level and also at wealth enhancement at the national level. Bryan, what other resources do we have coming up that you might want to speak to?
Yeah, we have some good topics coming up. We're going to be interviewing other professionals, so like adjacent professionals, some of the people I'm referring to here. So federal employment law attorneys, career transition counselors, federal employee benefit experts. So there's a whole industry of people who explain and are experts at the nuance of federal employee benefits. There's all sorts of scenarios you come across, right, that aren't the normal, okay, I just need a number of years in my MRA to get my pension, right? They could have military service, they could have term appointments, they could be part-time technically, they could have left the government and come back. So there's that role. So we're going to be talking to them. I talk to them on a regular basis now to help plan for clients, but we're going to be putting some content out from them, give them an opportunity to share some tips and tricks that they are eager to make sure the federal workforce is aware of. So that'll be coming out shortly. So I would highly encourage just making sure you're on our distribution list so you can get emailed notifications that those are coming out.
Excellent. Beyond getting on that distribution list, how can people get a hold of you if they want to talk a little bit more about their own specific
Yeah.
situations?
Yeah, so the offer we're making is just to do some of the personal finance conversations, have some of those conversations that I listed out, namely the retirement projection. I would do that as soon as possible, right? And that's what we're offering to do. So on the screen is my contact information. You can start with just an email to me. The QR code takes you to a booking link. So you can arrange a time. It has the availability of my calendar. We've opened up evening appointments as well as a couple sessions on Saturdays when available. Just because there's a lot of people that, they have questions and we're trying to help. There's no fee to have that conversation. It's really just, let's number crunch. Let's look at the data. Let's run some what if scenarios and see what happens. From there, we're financial advisors. We help people primarily with investment management. So if that's a conversation that ends up happening, great. If in the meantime, until there is clarity, we can just offer some perspective, some number crunching, some moral support. We're happy to do so.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Bryan, again for your time. And for those of you that want to speak with us directly, we look forward to hearing from you.